You went to bed last night looking completely normal. You woke up this morning, ate a bowl of oatmeal, drank your coffee, swallowed your refrigerated 50 to billion CFU probiotic capsule like you have every single morning for the past 2 years, and by 9 a.m., you looked 6 months pregnant. Your shirt is tight across your abdomen, you are uncomfortable sitting, you cannot focus, and nobody around you has any idea that underneath your clothes, your stomach has transformed into a pressurized balloon of gas and inflammation, and it started before you even finished your first cup of coffee. This is not a minor inconvenience. This is your life. Every single day. You have tried cutting out gluten, you have tried cutting out dairy, you have tried digestive enzymes, slippery elm, peppermint capsules, apple cider vinegar before meals, activated charcoal after meals, and every single strain of acidophilus and bifidus that the health food industry has been able to jam into a capsule and sell you at $20 a bottle. And still, every single morning, you are bloated. Still, every single evening, you are distended. Still, every single week, a new food that you used to tolerate without a second thought is now triggering a reaction that sends you sprinting for a bathroom. You are not imagining this. And here is the critical thing your gastroenterologist almost certainly never told you. You are not suffering from a shortage of bacteria. The root of what is happening inside your gut right now is structural, it is physical. And it has a name that the mainstream wellness industry has spent almost no time discussing with you because the solution does not involve selling you a subscription to a new probiotic. The condition is called epithelial tight junction collapse, and understanding it is going to change everything about how you approach your digestion for the rest of your life. Stay with me here, because I am about to walk you through the exact biology of why this is happening, and then I am going to give you the precise molecular intervention that can reverse it. Your intestinal lining is the most sophisticated border security system in the human body. Picture a wall, one single cell thick, stretching across approximately 4,000 square feet of surface area if you were to unfold it completely. That is the size of a tennis court. This cellular wall is your gut's primary line of defense against the outside world, and it is designed to perform an almost impossibly delicate task. It must allow fully digested nutrients, tiny individual amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose molecules to pass through into your bloodstream while simultaneously blocking everything else. Undigested food proteins, bacterial toxins, pathogens, waste compounds, all of it must be stopped cold. The mechanism that controls this selective passage is called a tight junction. These are microscopic protein structures that function exactly like a border security gate between adjacent gut cells. When you are young and healthy, these gates are sealed tightly shut. They open momentarily, allow a nutrient molecule to pass, and close again. The system is precise, rapid, and impenetrable. But after age 50, something happens to these gates. The protein structures that hold them shut, primarily proteins called claudins and occludins, begin to degrade. The structural integrity that kept them locked in position begins to weaken, and the gates stop closing properly. They rust open, they crack, and in many people over 50, they physically collapse. When tight junctions collapse, your gut wall stops being an impenetrable security barrier and becomes a leaking membrane. Undigested food particles that were never meant to reach your bloodstream begin slipping through. Bacterial toxins produced by your own gut microbiome begin crossing into systemic circulation. Fragments of proteins, particularly from foods like wheat and dairy that contain large molecular structures, begin appearing on the other side of a wall they should never be able to cross. And your immune system, which monitors your bloodstream with absolute vigilance, detects these foreign particles and responds exactly the way it is designed to respond. It launches a full inflammatory attack. Your immune system does not distinguish between a genuine pathogen and an undigested food particle that leaked through a broken gate. It treats both as invaders, and the result of that immune assault is the massive, paralyzing, systemic inflammation that you experience as bloating, cramping, and sudden, seemingly unexplained food intolerances. This is not a bacterial deficiency. This is a structural failure. A physical collapse of the very architecture that keeps your gut working as a barrier. Now here is where the mainstream health industry has been steering you wrong, And I want you to pay extremely close attention to what I am about to tell you because the numbers here are shocking. For years, and I mean years, the dominant recommendation for gut health has been high-dose live probiotic supplementation. The marketing has been extraordinary. 50 billion CFU, 100 billion CFU, multi-strain formulas with names that sound like pharmaceutical breakthroughs, refrigerated capsules to preserve viability. The entire framing assumes one thing, that if you can just flood your gut with enough live beneficial bacteria, your digestion will correct itself. Here is the clinical reality. Human stomach acid carries a pH of approximately 1.5 to 2. That is not mildly acidic. That is a highly corrosive environment, roughly equivalent in destructive capacity to the acid inside a car battery. The purpose of that extreme acidity is to sterilize your food, meaning it is specifically designed to destroy any live organism that enters your stomach. And standard live probiotic bacteria, even the supposedly acid-resistant strains in modern formulations, are overwhelmingly obliterated by that environment. The survival rate for standard vegetative probiotic strains through the stomach is estimated at approximately 1% or less under normal gastric conditions. Up to 99% of every single live bacterium in that expensive capsule you swallowed this morning was incinerated before it ever had a chance to reach your colon. Relying on live probiotics to rebuild a collapsed gut lining is biologically equivalent to dropping handfuls of delicate seeds directly onto an open flame and expecting a forest to grow on the other side. The biology simply does not support the outcome you are paying for. And critically, even if some small fraction of those organisms did survive transit and did take up residence in your colon, they still would not fix the problem. Because live bacteria, once established, produce butyric acid as a metabolic byproduct. Butyric acid is the compound your colon cells primarily run on. It is the cellular fuel that maintains the integrity of your intestinal barrier. But the pathway from live bacteria to butyric acid production involves multiple biological steps, colonization of the gut wall, competitive survival against existing microbial populations, adequate fermentation of dietary fiber substrates, and consistent metabolic output over time. It is a long, inefficient, attrition-heavy route to the same destination. There is a direct route, and that is what you need to hear about right now. The compound is called Tributyrin. And it is not a probiotic, it is not a prebiotic, it is what researchers classify as a postbiotic, and the distinction is not semantic, it is molecularly fundamental. Instead of sending fragile living organisms into your stomach hoping they survive to eventually produce a beneficial compound, Tributyrin is that beneficial compound, already fully formed, already bioavailable, and engineered by its own molecular architecture to survive exactly the acidic environment that destroys everything else. Here is the precise chemistry. Butyric acid in its raw form is unstable in stomach acid and has a notoriously unpleasant odor. It would degrade before reaching its target. Tributyrin solves both problems through a specific molecular configuration. 3 butyric acid molecules are bonded directly to a glycerol backbone molecule in a structure called a triglyceride. This glycerol ester bond is remarkably stable in acidic environments. Stomach acid has no meaningful effect on this molecular structure. Tributyrin enters your stomach, passes through entirely intact, and reaches your small intestine and colon, where specific lipase enzymes cleave the glycerol bonds, releasing all 3 butyric acid molecules directly at the site where they are needed most. This is not supplementation through a fragile biological chain. This is direct molecular delivery. You are bypassing every point of failure that makes live probiotics ineffective and delivering raw cellular fuel precisely to the epithelial cells that line your colon and are responsible for maintaining the tight junctions that have been collapsing. The research behind Tributyrin's efficacy is substantial. Studies published in clinical gastroenterology literature have demonstrated that butyric acid delivered via Tributyrin increases expression of the tight junction proteins claudin 1 and occludin at the cellular level, meaning it is stimulating your gut cells to actively rebuild the protein structures of the security gates that have broken down. It reduces inflammatory cytokine signaling along the intestinal wall. It supports mucin production, which is the thick protective mucus layer that lines your gut and provides the first line of defense even before the tight junction barrier. And it does all of this not by introducing a foreign organism that has to compete for survival in your existing microbiome, but by providing direct cellular energy that your epithelial cells use to perform their own repair function. A clinical investigation conducted at the University of Florence evaluated the effect of sodium butyrate supplementation on patients with irritable bowel syndrome and found statistically significant reductions in abdominal pain, bloating, and transit irregularity compared to placebo. Research from the Jagiellonian University Medical College in Krakow documented that butyric acid supplementation improved the integrity of the intestinal epithelial barrier in colitis patients, demonstrating measurable restoration of tight junction architecture at the microscopic level. A study in the journal Nutrients confirmed that Tributyrin as a delivery vehicle for butyric acid demonstrated superior bioavailability and colonic delivery compared to free sodium butyrate supplementation, validating the glycerol ester mechanism specifically. But Tributyrin alone addresses the fuel side of the equation. There is a second component that accelerates and completes the structural repair, and it addresses the mucosal layer directly. Zinc carnosine is a chelated compound in which elemental zinc is bonded to the dipeptide carnosine at a 1:1 molecular ratio. This specific chelation is not interchangeable with standard zinc supplementation. Standard zinc in any form, zinc citrate, zinc picolinate, zinc oxide, is absorbed in the small intestine and enters systemic circulation. It does not preferentially accumulate at the gut wall. Zinc carnosine behaves differently because the chelated structure causes it to adhere directly to the gastric and intestinal mucosa, meaning it physically sticks to the lining of your gut, where it slowly releases both zinc and carnosine locally at the tissue level. The clinical significance of this is enormous. Zinc is a critical cofactor for the enzymes that synthesize collagen and the structural proteins that form tight junctions. Carnosine has demonstrated direct anti-inflammatory effects on intestinal epithelial tissue and has been shown to inhibit the activity of matrix metalloproteinases, which are the enzymes that actively break down tight junction proteins during inflammatory states. Together, in their chelated form, they act as a biological welding agent directly at the site of structural collapse. While Tributyrin is providing the cellular energy to power repair, zinc carnosine is simultaneously stabilizing the repair environment, suppressing the inflammatory destruction of newly synthesized tight junction proteins, and providing the zinc cofactors necessary for actual structural protein assembly. A controlled trial published in the Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology demonstrated that zinc carnosine supplementation at a dose of 37.5 milligrams twice daily significantly reduced gut permeability markers compared to placebo in patients with leaky gut syndrome. A separate investigation examining the mucosal adherence mechanism confirmed that the chelated compound maintained localized zinc concentrations in gastric mucosa at levels up to 4 times higher than equivalent doses of standard zinc. Supplementation, validating the site-specific delivery advantage of the chelated form. This is your exact protocol, and precision matters here. Upon waking, before consuming any food, before drinking coffee, before any other supplement, you take 500 milligrams of liquid encapsulated Tributyrin. Liquid encapsulation is critical because it maximizes dispersion in the small intestinal lumen and improves contact with lipase enzymes at the onset of the digestive process. Take it with a full 1-2 ounce glass of water. The empty stomach state ensures there is no competing dietary lipid content that would slow lipase availability or dilute the delivery mechanism. Simultaneously, you take 16 milligrams of elemental zinc carnosine. This dose corresponds to the typical formulation providing 37.5 milligrams of the chelated compound, which is the dose range validated in clinical mucosal adherence research. Do not substitute generic zinc. The chelation is the mechanism. Without it, you lose the mucosal adhesion property that makes this compound categorically different from standard zinc. You do not eat for at least 30 minutes after taking both compounds. This fasting window allows the tributyrin to begin dispersing through the upper GI tract before gastric acid secretion increases in response to food. It allows the zinc carnosine to begin adhering to the mucosal lining without interference from dietary proteins that would compete for mucosal binding sites. Maintain this protocol daily with no gaps. The repair of tight junction architecture is not immediate. The colonic epithelium has a cell turnover rate of approximately 3 to 5 days, meaning the structural improvements you are driving have to work through multiple cellular renewal cycles before they become systemic and stable. This is why consistency in the morning window is non-negotiable. If you are consuming a diet high in fermentable fibers, specifically resistant starches from sources like cooked and cooled potatoes, green bananas, and legumes, you are providing the fermentation substrate that your existing gut bacteria need to produce additional butyrate endogenously alongside the tributyrin you are delivering directly. This is synergistic, not redundant. Think of it as tributyrin rebuilding the colon cells from the outside, while dietary resistant starch feeds your microbiome to support butyrate production from within. Both streams deliver butyric acid to the colonocytes. Together, they are far more powerful than either alone. Now, I want to give you a structured challenge, and I want you to take it seriously, because the data you collect on your own body over the next 14 days is going to be more convincing than anything I can tell you. Starting tomorrow morning, before you take anything, measure your lower waist circumference at the level of your navel, 1 hour after your heaviest meal of the day. Write that number down. That is your day one baseline. Throw away the probiotics. I am not asking you to reduce them or phase them out. Throw them away. They are absorbing your money and delivering organisms that are dying before they reach your colon. They are not addressing the structural problem. They are not rebuilding your tight junctions. They are theater. Begin the tributyrin and zinc carnosine protocol immediately upon waking. Empty stomach, full glass of water, 500 milligrams tributyrin, 16 milligrams elemental zinc carnosine. Every single morning for 14 days without exception. On day 14, measure again. Same time, same meal, same measuring tape position, same hour post-meal. Compare your two numbers. Your gut lining is not a bacterial ecosystem problem. It is a structural problem, and you now have the molecular tools to address it at exactly the biological level where the failure is occurring. If this information reached you today and you know someone over 50 who is suffering through the same daily bloating, the same growing list of food intolerances, the same wasted money on probiotics that never worked, share this with them immediately, not as a recommendation, as an act of protection. They are losing years of comfort and metabolic function to an industry that profits from keeping them confused about the actual mechanism. And if you think what you just learned about tributyrin is striking, in the next video, I am going to expose a compound found in a specific cut of grass-fed beef that has been shown in peer-reviewed research to increase muscle protein synthesis in adults over 55 by a mechanism that bypasses the mTOR pathway entirely, which means it works even in individuals who have developed partial anabolic resistance, the exact condition that makes conventional protein supplementation progressively less effective as you age. What you are about to learn will completely reframe how you think about protein, muscle retention, and metabolic aging. Do not